So if there's any silence, somebody ask a question, okay? Anyways, my name's Gracie. I'm from Central High School, and I'm the Carroll County Youth Representative for the Mental Health Task Force. And we're really honored to have this amazing panel of judges, speakers tonight. Starting in the middle, I guess, we'll go with Dr. Mel. He's the counselor at Carrollton High School, and then we have Ms. Zerr. She's the counselor at Central High School. Ms. Flowers is the program manager at Morehouse School of Medicine. Mr. Dortch is the associate clinical therapist at Willowbrook. Dr. Ford is the child and adolescent psychiatrist at Willowbrook. And then Ms. Oliver is the social work specialist at the Georgia Department of Education. So thank you all for being here today. We're really honored to have a panel so professional and well informed. So just a little bit about the Carroll County Youth Mental Health Task Force. We met in January of last year when our community or some of us in the community started to see that we really needed a group of people that were willing and were looking for change surrounding mental health as a community. And so we all met together and ended up splitting into, I think it was 4 different groups that all had a different goal for the year. And really the biggest idea that we had for that meeting was to lead with a goal and to accomplish that goal by the end of the year. And our goal was the resources, and we're so honored to have Ms. Eva. She was the head of our group, and we were able to accomplish not only a website for the youth mental health with resources and things like that, but we were also able to come up with a educational video just to kind of promote mental health awareness. And also, we were able to get many brochures printed with lots of resources for the community. So we were really glad to get those thoughts that we had, because I feel like that's something that we all struggle with, is having a thought of getting something done, but actually putting the work in to get that done. And so we were really happy to get those goals achieved. And so I guess we will just go ahead and go into today.
Hi everybody. My name is Olivia Cranford. I'm a junior at Carrollton High School. Are you all ready to get started? Okay. So we have 7 topics, and again, this is a conversation, so let's pitch in if you have a question. I'll hand you the mic and you just ask. They're not directed, or my questions are not really directed toward one in particular, so just answer them if you have some. So topic 1 is dealing with stress. So my first question is, there we go. All right, my first question is, as a high school student, stress is inevitable. What's a good way to cope with it, and how do we reduce it? So, anyone can answer? That was the latter part of your question. As a high school student, stress is inevitable. What's a good way to cope with it, and how do we reduce it? And that's for anyone to answer. Dr.
Okay, thank you for your question. So I think it's a great question, and I think it's a prevalent one in today's youth in high school. So specifically in regards to high school students' experiences, I think stress, we need to be able to lean on people. A lot of times there's this feeling of being isolated or to be a particular way, and a lot of that's just maybe instigated by our interactions on social media or different types of media and just peer groups. So I think the first step to coping with stress is education. And sometimes, that can happen in schools or other places in our community. So what is stress? What are coping mechanisms? Kind of defining those general terms, I think is a great place to start. And talking about high school, we can back that up a little bit. I think we talked about that before. Starting that, for example, in schools, elementary school, middle school, and so forth, so that we can identify with ourselves. We're in such a pivotal time of identity formation in high school. So knowing who am I, what is positive mental health and negative mental health look like. So I think education is the first part.
one thing I would add to what Mr. said is, I think, for me, the thing that I've learned is perspective. The importance of being able to, sometimes I refer to it as zooming out, stepping back, and taking a look at the thing that is stressing us, and trying to look at it through a different lens. I had an experience when I shifted from working in mental health, community mental health at Willowbrook to when I became a school counselor, and I was the only school counselor at the school with 650 kids, and I didn't have a lot of training. I had no formal training, and I didn't have a lot of on-the-job training. I was kind of thrown in, and let's figure this out. And my principal was great, she was so supportive, and there were times when I would walk into her office and say, Ms. Sutton, I feel like I'm drowning, there's no way I'm going to get this all done, I'm freaking out, I don't know what to do. I know what I have to do, but I don't know how I'm going to do it. And her response, and I love this, and I repeat it to myself on occasion, I'll do my best to set it on next. She said, Ms. Carroll, I want you to remember one thing. Today at 3:30, the bell's going to ring and all of God's children are going to go home. And tomorrow at 8:30, the bell's going to ring and all God's children are going to come sit in their seats and you go to school. And so that was her way of helping me know, step back, take a breath, and realize that the thing that you're freaking out about is going to be okay. Stress is real, stress is challenging, but sometimes our perspective on that stress and knowing that the sky isn't falling every time you do feel stressed can be helpful to help with that.
One of the many things that I had the privilege of being able to do is to do some stress management workshops. And in teaching these workshops, there's two particular things that I do share with people to begin to put into practice. I know a lot of people say, well, everybody, these days seem to want to journal. And I can't stress enough how important being able to put that into practice for yourself really can be. I know some people feel like, well, I don't know if I feel safe journaling. I don't want anybody to get into my journal. And that is something that you need to be aware of. But one of the things I found in studying about journaling is there's a healing through writing. So to take that time, and one of the things that we teach is when you're doing a journal, let's say you do a journal entry right now. Don't go back and read what you just, put in your journal. Wait a week. Go back a week and see if there was something that, whatever the stress was, how did it work itself out? How did you get it to work out? To go back and look at it the very next day could only be adding more stress to it. The other thing that I've taught was decluttering. Now, for our teenagers, I was a teenager once myself, my mother would come in the room and say, okay, you need to clean up your room. I don't think anybody in here does this. Well, my idea of cleaning up the room was take my dirty clothes and throw them in the closet, close the door, take my toys and stuff from up under the bed, and pull the cover down so she can't look up under the bed, and of course, my mom was a little bit smarter than that, so she'd come in and say, you haven't cleaned your room. It did look nice and neat, but it wasn't clean because she would pull the cover up and you would put your toys up and she would go in the closet. So in teaching this, what I do is I say, just like going into a room, we need to learn how to declutter our minds as well. Because a lot of times the things that are stressful on the outside, what's really bringing the stress is seeing it and then us trying our best to try to process it, but it's so much that we can't. So we have to get to a place where we can begin to declutter our minds. And declutter your room. Take a spot in your room, take 30 minutes, and just work on that spot. Now, I don't know how many parents would agree with this, kids. Work on that spot. Leave the room. And if you can get away with being out of the room for 2 hours, and then go back in and pick another spot, and do that, and eventually you get your room cleaned up as you go and you do it. Well, you take that same concept, and you do this in your mind. Okay, there are some things that are really causing me stress. I need to process this stuff, but trying to process it all at one time can be pretty frustrating, and can actually add more stress. So you want to, you can make a list of what are the things that are really stressing you the most. And so now I'll take that one thing and let's work on it. The other things are still going to be there, but once you start getting to a place where you can take some things off of the list, you'll start to see that now my stress is starting to come down because I was able to address this one thing. Then I can go back and I can work on this next thing. I hope that makes sense to everybody. But journaling, healing through writing, and decluttering, I think those are two really good things to help you out.
This is an important distinction. I totally agree with you, that organization can be the antidote to stress. I've experienced it personally and professionally. The challenge with teenagers is the part of their brain that develops the ability to organize and plan ahead is not fully formed. They're about 24, 25 years old, experts. Yeah. And so that's a place where we, as the parents and counselors and leaders, can help them learn those organizational skills and to line things up and divide them and attack them one at a time, because it's not that they don't want to, it's that their brains aren't fully able to do it.
Okay, so we'll ask the second half another question. That was great. This question is, when taking on new challenges or goals, how do we know when the stress we are facing is normal versus when it becomes overwhelming and unproductive? Like, how do you know when to stop at that point,
I'll go ahead and say something, but I think what's really important with that question is just realizing that sometimes it's hard for us to identify our own stress, and I feel like that's where it's really important to have other people on board with you, because I know for me personally, sometimes my family or my friends catch me under stress before I realize it, and I feel like that's something that's super important. It's just to have that, even if it's only one person that knows you and can tell, because I think we all know that you can tell when someone's going through something, whether it be their physical demeanor or something, maybe they're just not acting right. And I feel like it's very, very important to have that. For some people, it's a bunch of people, and for some, it might just be one, but having that group of people that can realize when you're under stress, I think that can really help you realize if it's normal, just everyday stress, or if it's something that needs more attention brought to it. So.
Yeah, and to kind of go off of that, that's actually a conversation I have a lot of times with the kids that I see, because there's home stress, there's school stress, there's friend stress, there's so much that is on their minds, and maybe they're really worried about things. And so some of it in bringing this conversation forward about mental health is also pointing out what's, normalizing, all of it, and that sometimes I get, of course, because it's uncomfortable, like a lot of kids come into my office and they're like, well, I want the anxiety to go away. But anxiety actually can be a good thing. There is normal parts of that. It helps us to not, I usually tell them it helps us, study for a test, not walk too close to the edge of a cliff. There are things that are, that is helpful with that. And so a lot of times, giving clear things that notice in the change of somebody. So again, relying on parents or support group around to notice that change. I say, if the anxiety is to the point that you aren't just nervous about taking the test, you're literally not even going to take it. Grades are falling, you can't sleep at night. You're not getting out of bed because we're not going to out with friends because you're nervous about what's going to go on. Those types of things, I think, are a step beyond what's helpful to us. And a lot of times, even 7-8-year-old patients I see can understand help and know, like, well, this is a little more than just being worried about, a test or, as a grandparent or something that's totally normal.
A couple thoughts that I've had is everyone has stress. Everyone in this room has been stressed out at some point. And what might be stressful to me may not be stressful to someone else. So taking a big test, maybe your thing. Maybe you're an academic and you just love that invigorating feeling that you have. And then someone else, struggles to have a weekly spelling test. And what we say in youth mental health first aid, so here's my plug, I'll make one in the beginning, is that if you haven't taken a youth mental health first aid class, you should. We at the Department of Ed have those classes available to you, so happy to give you that information. But in youth mental health first aid, what we say is when it begins to impact how you live, how you laugh, or how you love. So, if you're so stressed out, like my doctor to the right says, that you can't even go to school that day, so you've got school avoidance, school counselors, and then that's impacting your student. And we need some additional assistance. Your student was so stressed out that they were crying, but they still got in the car and they went to school and they still took the test. Yeah, that was really difficult for them, but that might have been in their best interest to maybe have some of that anxiety to make them do well. Okay, so remember, does it impact their ability to live, do their normal, regular things, to love, to have relationships with their friends, to have relationships with their peers, and then to laugh. So are they sadder than normal? Is their affect, what you see on their face, their emotions, does it look different? And then that might be a sign for you to get more assistance.
So, I said whatever, well, I didn't say anything, but I wrote down normal on one side of my paper and too much on the other. And I put the words behavior change, and that's what the difference is, I believe. It's too much stress when you see extreme behavior changes. And that's what I wrote when you said the question, so it seems like we're all kind of on the same page. When you start to see something out of the norm, whatever your norm is, then that's when you know.
I know that a lot of stress for me comes from balancing school, work, and social life. If a student, this is for the counselors, the high school counselors, if a student were to come to you struggling with balancing schoolwork and social life, what would be some tips you have to prevent becoming burnt out from that?
One thing that I talk to students about often is just prioritizing. Because I know that being a student, being an athlete, having a job, being a friend, being a boyfriend or a girlfriend, like there's not enough time in the day to do all the things that you want to do well. And it's okay to not be excellent in every single area. If you want to do a lot of different things, then it's okay to do as good as you can those things and let that be what it is. Otherwise, it can become a question of, well, what can you decide to take off your plate? Can you tell your job that I need to work 10 fewer hours in a week because I don't have time to do my homework and play my lacrosse match? Are there other aspects of your life that you can dial back on a little bit? Because ultimately, if it's impacting your mental health, you're not able to perform at your peak anyway. And so it's kind of not worth the effort that sometimes we put into it when we've overloaded our plate.
And I agree with Dr. Mount and refer back to something you previously said about, we have to help, to find people that can help you with that part of your brain that's not quite developed yet, organize and pull things apart and put them back together again. And again, the assertiveness training and being able to say no and self-awareness. What do I need that's filling my bucket and how do I attend to that? And what can I kind of remove or dismiss at this time?
Does anybody in the audience have anything they want to say? Okay.
You mentioned the youth mental health first aid that you were talking about. Yeah, you, sorry. Can you expand, talk about that a little bit? Is that offered to parents?
Certainly, it's actually a course for a layperson. So it might not be appropriate for a clinical psychologist, for example. It's for parents, it's for teens, it's for anybody who wants to learn a little bit more about mental health. And what I love about it is that it gives you the tools immediately to be able to help. And there's a little acronym, so I'm going to give you the secret that you'll learn if you send an 8-hour course, is that, and I wrote it down so I don't forget, ALGE. So you'll learn to assess. And the best thing that I love about youth mental health first aid is it's going to give you the power and the comfortableness to be able to ask someone if they are suicidal. You can be able to ask someone, do you want to hurt yourself right now? And that's an okay question. It really destigmatizes us being able to ask. So if you ask, it doesn't mean you're going to plant that seed. It probably is going to relieve the person if they have those emotions. So the number one thing you'll learn is being able to ask that question, are you suicidal? And then number two, you are going to listen non-judgmentally, because oftentimes we want to go ahead and make an assessment, oh no, you're too blessed for that, or you're just going to sit with that. You're going to give reassurance. You're not going to promise that everything's okay. You're going to say, you know what, I'm sorry that you're feeling that way right now, and we're going to give you some help. And then the next two steps are really important, because it brings us folks here to the table. You're going to try to find some professional assistance to make that school calendar. So if you're in homeroom and your friend in front of you looks like things are bad, and you say, are you okay? And they say, no, I'm not okay. Are you suicidal? You know what, I'm thinking, I don't know. You know what, thank you so much for telling me that right now. We're going to go see Ms. Warren, and I'm going to give you the entire time. We're going to Ms. Warren's class, we're going to her, and we're going to say, you know what, my friend, she's not doing well, and I'm so glad she told me, but I knew that she needed some professional assistance. And then the last thing we're going to do is offer some non-professional assistance. Can we hang out later after school? And we both be your youth pastor. And I know you love playing basketball, so I'm going to talk to your coach. How can we, wrap you in support? So there's these 5 steps that anybody can do. And I was telling the girls, so can we just give these girls a round of applause? And I continue to be impressed. But before this, we were talking, and they already understand the importance of being vulnerable, and we're talking about our emotions. And us folks at a different age level, we're not there yet. It's still something that we're powering through. And what I want, the biggest thing I want that you know is you don't have to be a professional to talk about mental health. You don't have to know the psychology of one. It's all about just supporting somebody else in their struggle. So everybody after taking youth mental health first aid, I hope would be able to go through these 5 steps, remember them, and just be able to be with someone that's in a crisis.
I would also suggest, adult mental health first aid as well, because the youth kind of helps you address the youth, but the adults, if the adult is having issues, they may not know how to go to the youth. So I think it helps to take both courses. It's a lot of it's a long course, so it's 4 days.
And you have to remember that last year we were able to train 19 people for free, and we are going to continue doing that in our community. So if you're interested, and that's why we did the sign up, whoever is interested, let us know. We will do the trainings, not us, but we are going to have experts that do this. And it's an 8-hour time of your time, but it is well worth it.
Teachers in my last school district told me it's the best professional development they've ever had. Truly. So it's engaging, it's worth your time, and it really gives you skills to be able to help people.
My whole staff is that I'm a youth counselor, it's my entire staff. It's a money, we all do. And both of them, even though, because it was
Yeah, I would say at Carrollton, these two have been instrumental in forming awareness on campus. It's not called the Change the Mind. It's advocating for a lot of these issues. I've certainly been in places to talk about this and looking at ways that we can involve mental health first aid program in our curriculum that we're doing at club as well. then we also, I do a mental health moment every month that gets sponsored out to the students when they're in advice level, 5 to 10 minute video about mental health topic. Then we do the same thing at our staff meetings. So we're definitely focusing on it. The format of it might be a little different than what they offer, but we certainly like to.
It's similar at county schools as well. So we do one advisement, a club specifically regarding mental health awareness and support. And so I think that's an ongoing conversation. If there's not something formal, it would be amazing. I'd love to appeal to the people that make decisions. But council cost factor and the rest of it. But it's up and coming, and it's more. I've been at Central for 8 years, and we're doing good work, and the kids are doing a great job.
So I'm gonna go to Central. Are y'all taking part in the program, Sources of Strength?
We did 3 years, 2.5, kind of petered out. COVID was involved with how we had access to that. We did Sources of Strength. Our teachers are currently trained within the Capturing Kids' Heart program, and so that has a social emotional wellness undertone, and so that is what we have right now. And my understanding is that we will continue with Capturing Kids' Heart next year, and I'm looking at another program to continue doing something where we are building relationships and rapport, first and foremost with our students, because that's how we can then have these conversations more effectively, once we're trained as well.
Can you see the students embracing that?
Absolutely.
Because I think that, we're looking at these two young ladies here. We had a whole school out of these two ladies right here. The world would be different. And if we could start a domino effect of students doing that, it's just going to be so powerful. I'm just going to share something very personal. My son attempted suicide and survived. He still has a little of it in his head. And I can go back to 2018 when he was having behavioral changes, as you mentioned. And as a parent, I did the best I could, and I felt lost, and I didn't know what to do. I turned to administration, and they were very supportive, but some were not as educated as I thought they needed to be on the issue, and I'm not saying that in the wrong kind of way. It was just a lot of assumptions, and I'm just a very strong advocate on what we all need to do as a community, in every school and in our community, and really just being this domino to help people. There's so many students and kids suffering, but as when you said, adults are too. We have families that kids are having to take care of their parents, and the grandparents are having to take care of the kids, and there's a loss of parents in there. We all know that. I don't know what it looks like. I think all of this is a good start. I'm actually in Harrison County now as an educator, and we're starting a lot of youth mental health task force as well. But I personally experienced it, and I was lost in a part of it. I've been strong through a lot of it.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think what I'm hearing you say, there's a lot, and it's a great value what you have to give us. And I say that here from the school side as well, so I really appreciate you sharing that. We need to be reaching all children, and all staff, and we can have very explicit, open conversations, just like was just talked about. And so, my hope and desire is that that continues.
One thing also that we were talking about earlier, people want to get involved. Like our community, you can see it. When we did the walk, we did an Out of Darkness walk, there were over 400 people that came from our community. I mean, we have a club that we just started this year, Mental Health Club, and there's 70 kids that signed up. People want to get involved, somebody just needs to take that step, and we're a part of that. We need to take that step. You know, I mean, people want to help, and I think that's really important, so.
But a student voice is so powerful.
Well, and I feel like that's where our school-wide clubs now really coming into, people are starting to realize that these clubs aren't just for the popular kids. I mean, if anything, we want those kids to feel like there isn't another connection for them. And so, I feel like that's where, over the next few years, these clubs will really pick up. And I pray that more and more people realize that they're not just for the typical straight-A, happy, athletic kid, but they're for everybody, because we all struggle with crime. So.
And we started a program called The Voice in that December, what we were talking about. And one of the things we do, like administrators, in fact, we have to be out with students every morning, but getting the students out to group has been one real big turnaround in medicine. That student that walks by with a smile on their face, and we all know that a smile will change someone's life. And just them realizing it, so being involved in it. You know, there's a saying that I go by that you can help us do something all day long, you can show them things, but until they get involved, when they get involved, they don't understand. And it's about being involved. You can show and you can tell all day long, but you got to be involved.
I don't know if you've heard of it. Gracie and I have gone to several conferences, and the lady that heads this up lost her daughter to suicide, and she was a senior. And it's called Love Like Legacy. And she has a complete curriculum, and she is going into schools and doing these seminars with kids. They're mandatory. They're making them mandatory. And it's amazing. She has a Christian curriculum, and then she has a school curriculum. School system, and she's amazing, and she tells the entire story. And her daughter, just to give you a little bit of background, really didn't show any signs. So it's a really, you can look it up online, but it's something that Gracie and I have talked about, wanting her to be able to get into the school and be able to do this and come. And it's the neatest thing, because the kids are, there, and they have to attend. And then at the end, she has them come up and sign a board that says she's like. She's like, and it's all about identity and who you really are, and not what the world says you are, not another. It's awesome. So that's another thing that I would love to see at some point in our school systems.
Big Voice does that too, what we're not banner. And there's a big kickoff every year about getting kinder and gentler to one another, and including everyone, being inclusive, and they have to sign on it, and it's very powerful to, it's run properly, and adults getting out there, helping students navigate, so you see that person right there, the students, and it's strong hold there, helping them, and you're helping guiding them, and helping show them some of the things we as adults already know, body language, and, being able to pick up on some of those things, but we've taught some of our students at Carrollton County just that, and, it's just, it's kind of pulling that onion back, it kind of opens their minds more, and I kind of think that's where we've got to get with kids today, because they're stuck on their phones or social media. We've got to open their minds.
Yeah, and for my school system, the social emotional wellness program, whatever it might be, as long as there's something that's doing exactly what you're talking about, very similar examples where it's reaching all students, the opportunity to reach all students, any students, and start conversations or interactions face to face, right, in real time. And it builds that school culture, positive school culture and climate, and that openness to then, when we are in front of our children, when we are, whether we're parents or counselors or teachers or coaches, when we're in front of them, and we have those experiences that are positive, that are about who we are and how we feel, then later when we have another interaction with a student, you know, it allows that child to feel safe to then come to and speak word to how they feel and what they need. And so I feel like it's very effective.
A sense of community is the number one thing to help someone struggling, absolutely. Like, to have someone that's visibly upset and they're struggling, and having a big group of people that obviously care about them, that is the number one thing. You know, you can never know. There's not a mold on what someone looks like that's struggling. You might not know, but the best thing we can do for the most amount of people is share our voice and share that we care and that we want to help anyone struggling so that they can have the strength to come forward.
And I would like to add maybe even a challenge for everybody who is putting forth these things for students in the schools. I know I heard you, Dr. Mel, say that the staff does some things too, which I think is very good. A lot of times when I'm seeing patients in the office, I usually go through, how are you, how's school, how's school? And a big thing with the school piece is the community and feeling included or, you know, having that support, but having something higher up to go to. And I think that teachers, administrators, they're so busy, they're so in their stuff that they gotta do every day, which I don't blame them, that they don't see sometimes the why. I was talking to Ms. Dortch about this earlier. There's reactions to just the behaviors or the the singular thing that happened. Okay, well, this kid, person, another child, and another got ISS. Well, why? Why did this child who usually does okay? Why do they react that way? Where is that coming from? And I think that so top down also so the kids feel like they've got somebody in the school that they can go to, an adult who can do something about it. Tons of the amount of bullying I hear about is still. Exactly, right. Well, it's not the solution to the real problem. It's, let's put it away and pretend it doesn't exist. That's what we've done with mental health for decades.
The thing that I'll tell teachers sometimes along these lines is, you usually probably won't know the why. And you might never know the why. And even we as clinicians, a lot of times aren't able to get to the why. But a good starting point for everybody is to assume that there is a compelling why. Assume that there's a reason why this kid is acting like this kid is bringing a weapon to school, why this kid is addicted to marijuana, why this unhealthy behavior is happening. And start there, and that can help keep us from reacting emotionally personally and having a hard time doing anything other than punishing. Because there are behaviors that happen in school that can be punished. And ISS has a place, but when it's the only thing that happens when a behavior occurs, it's not terribly common. So assuming that there's a compelling reason why, there always is, you just don't always get to know.
I think a piece of that though is that as adults, I think that our perception of what a stressor is different than what a stressor is for a high school student or a college student or elementary school student. And we all went through these things, and when they happened to us as kids, they were huge deals. And we look back on them, you say you have perspective now that girlfriend I had when I was in the 6th grade wasn't that big of a deal. But I think that we forget about when we were in that setting, it was the most important thing in the world. And if you sit back and you listen, I think there are times you can find that why, and I think that's something a lot of parents don't get. They're like, that's ridiculous. You've got food on the table, you've got this, we're giving you everything. What they want is they want it to be okay that they're upset about a grade or a girlfriend or not making the sports team and I think we forget that.
Yeah, I think to that point too, though, we also assume that their experience is like ours, because their little is all on
A whole different world.
Well, I think about when we were in high school, you get to the Friday party, you might find out one day, right? These kids see it happen in full color on Instagram and Snapchat and whatever form I'm on. But it's just, I think there's a whole lot of complexity, and I feel too, I'm not really that, like, you don't have to back what on, and I also think, I never had a thing, to be honest. It is, it's for everybody.
Yeah, but there wasn't much call from parents to meet you out of high school.
Really, that was it, yeah.
And there was a different respect for authority. There were a lot of things that made it easier to get ahead. And thankful I'm not.
No, you're right, it is a tough time. We did a breakout session the other day, kind of sources of strength, and just did in the classroom, and we took all the different sources, and did the pod groups. It was fun, it was like going back in time. We let the students play jacks, and we let them read some books of, inspiration, and then they had to get up and talk about what inspired them, and, in return, they inspired their peers because of what they read. And then we had students write thank you notes, and then delivering thank you notes so that they could feel how that felt, to give it, and see the expression of something. I mean, it's just so much. There are tiny little things that we do, but they're very impactful.
I been sitting and listening to our school counselors, listening to people, listening to the kids, and the thing that's been in my mind has been, we're living in a time right now where this generation is not waiting for the older generation to give to them. They want it. They're hungry. They don't want to be what we have seen in the past, which is, we have normal people and we have these people over here. They don't want it to be that way. And hearing them talk about the organizations and things that they put together, for me, just sitting and listening to it, it's like a dream come true. I mean, I literally, when Mr. Mountain and I used to work together, there were times when I was sitting in my office and just thinking to myself, like, man, I wish we could have organizations where these kids could really connect. How many of those kids that we have an opportunity to work with, where would they be at today as adults? But these kids are saying, yes, we don't want to struggle with this, so we're going to do what we have to do. And then to hear the school system saying, we're putting together things that are going to support our kids in mental health. And I'm seeing this picture being painted, this beautiful picture. And the thing I'm thinking about is me being, a therapist myself. I'm not thinking business. Please do not mistake this. I'm not thinking business, how much money this will bring to Norfolk or something like that. What I'm thinking is the connection. The next little piece that finishes the puzzle. The connection between the school, the students, and mental health entities like a Willowbrook. It doesn't have to just be Willowbrook. I mean, there's individual therapists that are here in the community. There's, pathways, there's a lot of different ones, but to be able to make the connection for the sake of the children, for the sake of adults, not for the sake of money, not for the sake of revenue, but for the sake of health. Medical, they connect with one another. You have heart specialists, and you have, primary care physicians, and you have pediatricians, and things that connect with one another. What I have seen is, and it bothers me, I've seen, this is mental health over here, and this is everybody else over here. And then there's just been this wall. The problem has been is that we were the ones who created the wall. And we need to be able to say, okay, enough is enough. Let's tear down the wall. Let's get out here. Let's connect together for the sake of this generation and generation to come, and even be able to reach back to the generation from the past who's struggling with mental health. Reach back and say, listen, we're all in this together. It's Again, it's not about revenue. It's about being healthy, you know? And so I think that's the piece to it, that the children know that there are, and the parents know that there are some places that we can take our kids to, and we can trust that they're gonna get the help that they need, and we're gonna be included with it as parents, not being judged. I hate that word, not being judged, but being helped, right? When you work in the capacity that I work in, like the way I see it is, what's most important when I go into a group therapy session is the people that I'm going in there with. At the end of it, when they finish the program, I don't want them to give me a pat on the back because the work that they did, that's their work. And I want to commend them for their work. And I think that's one of the things that can really help our kids is to be able to put them in a place, empower them to be able to look at it and say, you know what, I did do this for myself. And to empower the parents to be able to say, you know what, together as a family, not I'm gonna put my kid in this program and then you gotta get better, but everybody included, connecting with, school counselors as a therapist, all of those things, it all plays a huge role so that we can get our youth back in the right place.
Thank you all. I think that was a really good conversation. We got to hear some really good stuff. We're kind of going to switch gears and go into more of like the coping skills and things like that, which I feel like is something that people mistake a lot. We categorize things like substance abuse and different coping, different things that we say are mental health, when in reality they're just coping mechanisms. And while there are those healthy ones and there's also those negative, I think it's really important just to voice those positive ones, like such as affirmations. For me personally, I struggled with anorexia when I was 12, and after coming through recovery and coming out on the other side, I really started to realize that my way of coping with all that I was dealing with was by not eating, and same with people who are struggling with drug abuse or alcohol. It's all something that they feel like when all is out of control, that's the one thing they can cling to. And I feel like it's so important for us to realize that there's so many other options in our world that we could cling to that would be healthy things like maybe finding a support group or having positive affirmations, things like that, even though we feel like there's nothing else, and it is those negative, maybe it's sex trafficking or drug abuse or, in my case, an eating disorder, but when all feels out of control, we have to find and we have to promote those things that are healthy decisions and healthy coping mechanisms to deal with all those feelings that we are feeling. And so one of the questions we had for our board was just, what are some other coping mechanisms maybe you know of? I know Dr. Dortch was talking about the journaling, and I think that's a great idea, and I really think that can help so many people. But like for me personally, I'm so, I guess you could say ADD, that journaling just doesn't work for me. Like I just get sidetracked, and writing isn't like my thing. And so some of the things that I do, or one of the big things that I tell people all the time that has really helped me in my recovery is being able to tell my story, and I have a website called bouncebackbeautifully.com, and it's pretty much just a blog that I go on. Well, I guess this is kind of journaling, but I go on every week, and I just update with my struggles, with what I'm going through, and it really just relieves me and helps me to not only hold myself accountable, but I really feel like that's something that I use to cope with whatever I'm going through. And I think it's just important to share all the different coping mechanisms, because so many people have different ones that work for different people. None of us are the same. We're not all going to use the same things to deal with certain things. And I think it's important that we have just a way to share all of these different things that we all use to help with our personal mental health. So if y'all have any ideas about, or any of your personal coping skills that you use, we'd like to hear those. Audience.
Well, I guess I was gonna start off with a lot of the ones that I recommend, but I actually they're the ones I used to, so it kind of works out. But, you know, I think it was really great that you mentioned the journaling and then kind of caught yourself that like, oh, I guess I kind of do that. And I think that's a really important thing when it comes to coping mechanisms and coping skills and feeling, using things that work for you is that there could be a twist. It doesn't have to be exactly pen and paper journaling, but you're still, you're still getting it out. Drawing, expressive. I mean, that's something that I sort of started to teach myself and haven't been able to do very much, but I'm sort of teaching myself to make a palette knife, and it is probably one of the most calming things I've ever done. It, doesn't really look like much of anything, but it's great. I love it. And then it can be, for me, it's something I can do with my kids. Like, oh, you guys paint, I'm gonna paint. We'll have that, time together and a little bit of relief from stress. But I think also just being open to the different things. A lot of the things that I will recommend are from yoga and meditation. And sometimes I get like a weird little curl from teenagers who are like, no, thank you. But again, it can look different. Headspace has 3 minutes of guided meditation. I mean, that can make all the difference. So it's, I think that's the other thing too, is just realizing it doesn't have to be black and white coping mechanisms. Like I said, there's a lot of different ones that work for us and for different people. For me, the one that I encourage everyone, including myself, professionals, is talk therapy. Just talking to somebody about it. Even better if you're a clinician. Everybody needs therapy. If there's anything that we can do to destigmatize mental health, is to get into some counseling yourself. If you're having a problem with a kid or with a spouse relationship, that's what I call my therapist. Like, oh, not their problem, it's probably mine. So I encourage you to do counseling.
Couple things, since I'm the last one. QPR is question, persuade, avert, instigate, keeper training for suicide. It can be done for free. It's a 1-hour training. It's really good. It helps you be able to recognize the signs and to be able to ask the question, are you thinking about suicide? Or are you thinking about killing yourself or hurting yourself? And I highly recommend that training as well. And maybe that may be for more for the adults rather than the students, but I highly recommend it. Destigmatization, I can spell it if I can. I think this is what we need to do to destigmatize it, right? Is we gotta keep talking about it. We have to normalize it. I don't necessarily like the term mental health. I like to say mental wellness. And then if somebody has a condition, I call it mental illness. Because mental health can sometimes be confusing, right? Because somebody who's mental health is somebody who we think will have a problem. But health is supposed to be good, right? So I like to say mental wellness in reference to people finding their happy place. As far as coping, when I'm stressed, I like to just kind of get in my zone and be by myself and kind of be logical about things. I'm a scientist by trade, and so I think that's why. And so because of that, I'll go home. I like my aromatherapy candles. I got like 100. My house burned down, and I don't know why. And I just get in my happy place, and I just kind of zone out. And I don't, I might not be answering my phone for a weekend, but I'm okay. And then, Monday when I bounce back, I'm good because I kind of thought through things. I've got some logistics about it, and it works for me. We already talked about youth not having their brains fully developed, so that probably will be more challenging to them. Exercise, run. Find your happy place is what I would say is a good couple mechanism. I like Amazon is a good happy place. It is. You push the button and the next day, sometimes it's 7 days, it's the best thing.
So you caused your husband a lot of mental health.
Yes, probably so. Also, sometimes people forget that we were at their ages, and we live in a different time, or we grew up in a different time than they are. But I think we gotta meet them where they are, right? Like, you're 15, kind of put yourself back at your 15, whatever your stressor was at your point, was your hardest thing in the world, and that's their hardest thing now. I think just kind of meet them where they are, and I think that's one of the things we tell people when we do like some of this prevention work I do, is when you go to community, you can't go to community and say, I got all your solutions. You gotta go in and say, hey, I'm here, I can help you. What do you need? Tell me what you need. And that's kind of one of the things I have to say.
So one distinction that I've learned, two different categories of coping skills that people tend to employ is they can be creative in nature or consumptive in nature. So we're either creating things or we're consuming things. And neither one is better than the other, but it's important that we use both of them. So consuming things tends to be, make me feel better right now, distract me from my problems. There are times when I need to eat 4 slices of pizza and drink some IBC root beer and I'll be okay. Yeah, I'll still do that. There are other times when what I need is a run, or what I need is to call my best friend in California and vent for him. And so the creative side of things, this is the thing that I noticed, that I learned working in an inpatient unit at Willowbrook, was there were patients who would come and be with us for 5 to 7 days, and then they'd go home, and then a month later they'd be back. And then they'd go home, and then a month later, these were our frequent flyers. And we got to know them very well. And in talking with them about what life was like back home, there's a ton of consumption and not a lot of creation. And you would work on expressive therapy, and use art, and use writing, and use music, and use these different things. It's the difference between cooking and eating. Cooking is creative, eating is consuming. And there's a place for all of it. But a lot of times, what falls to the wayside is the creative side of things. And when you talk about meeting youth where they're at, I think it's important. So for example, TikTok is a great example. I might give myself a half hour of scrolling TikTok in bed at night because it's fun, it's distracting from my life. But TikTok can also be very creative, and that's a really good thing. And my daughter creates a ton of TikToks. I think it's really great for her. The hard thing about that is that creation can quickly slip into consuming, because then you're going to sit in the comments, and you're going to look at how many likes you have, you're going to pay attention to how many followers you have, and that becomes what's really feeding you, and that's the problem. So it is different for everybody, but intentionally trying to find a creative outlet for you, because for me the rule of thumb in coping skills, it's either distracting, which is fun, or it's going to find a way to get what's inside of me out. And that is, for me personally, that's the key in mental health treatment, is finding a way to get whatever's inside of somebody. And for some people that's going to be talk therapy, and for some people that's going to be play therapy, and for some people it's going to be going on a run 5 times a week, and for some people it's going to be getting good at culinary arts. But finding something that speaks to your soul, is creative in nature, is really, really important. I know I'm talking a lot, but I'll say one more thing. The importance of exercise is not just as a mind clearing thing, but there are proven mental health benefits. A half-hour day of exercise has the same effect on the average person dealing with depression as taking Prozac does. It fixes brain chemistry issues, exercising 30 minutes a day, and not like charging down the road, but a light sweat, brisk walk kind of exercise. The same is true with getting sunlight on our skin. This is why depression spikes in the winter, especially further north of them. If we can get ultraviolet light on our skin for a half-hour day, it has this automatic brain chemistry soothing effect on us. And so running outside, walking outside is a really positive thing on a brain chemistry level, and also on just a perspective of life. That's it.
Okay, talking back about stigma, there's obviously a huge stigma for mental health in general. I was thinking back, I go to a counselor every other week, and I remember being so embarrassed by that. I would tell people when I left early from school, or I was going somewhere, I was with someone, I would say, oh, I'm going to a hair appointment, or, I'm getting my nails done, and I would never tell someone. And then we were sitting down with my friends, and I was like, hey, I go see a counselor, I think it's really great. And they're like, yeah, me too. Yeah, so do I. And I realized how many people do it, and it's not an embarrassing thing at all. It really isn't. It's a great thing, and it has helped me so much. Being able to talk to someone for an hour and then listen, like, completely. It's just really, really helpful to me because, as much as I would love to sit down and vent to my friends, and be like, oh my God, go away. It's a great thing, and I suggest it to everyone. But there's a stigma with all types of mental health. I mean, there's a stigma with talking about suicide. Definitely. I lost my brother to suicide, and in like 4th grade. And so I ended up writing something for AFSP in the 7th grade, and I was on homecoming court in the 9th grade, and when they were reading out my list of things that I've been involved in, they listed it. They were like, she wrote something for AFSP, and my mom was in the stands, and there was a lady next to her, and they didn't know each other, and she looked at her, and she's like, I just can't believe they said that. I can't believe they said that word, suicide. Like, and it's still so prevalent. It's still so big, and people forget that. And that's why it's so important that we're here today. That's why it's so important that we make that next step. It's so important that we're reaching out to people because people want to get involved, like I said earlier, and we just need to make that step.
You made a mention about stigma, and Mr. Mount and Dr. Ford and I were standing back there when we first arrived, and we were having this conversation, and it got around to the idea of stigma. And it's something that not only am I a therapist, but I'm also a youth pastor. And the young lady in the back, she said something that is so true. 20% of our youth are coming to church now. Of course, one of the things that happened, which was a huge thing that happened, was, the pandemic. And a lot of people were not in church because of the fear of, COVID. It seems that we are beginning to come out of COVID. But the problem is that there's still not a lot of people coming to church. And we're talking 20% of youth. I don't even know what the percentage is of adults that's still not going, but we became a little bit more innovative. We started doing church services on YouTube, and people can go to Zoom and go to Google Meets, and so we have these services that are now online that people can go to. The problem with that, though, sometimes is that people can get really, really comfortable and say, well, I really don't have to go back to the physical church. Just do it right here. But in talking about the stigma, I've been involved in some conversations pre-pandemic that was just about that. There are people who are in church who we sit next to on Sunday or on Wednesday night at Bible study who have mental health needs. We would never know it. They're not going to talk about it because of that word stigma, because of the label. And what I was sharing with them was, and I've seen it firsthand, you have people, when there's an altar call, there are people who come up who have health conditions, I have some issues with my heart, I have diabetes, or, I've been diagnosed with cancer, or, these things going on. And what happens is, and please don't take this as I'm bashing the church, because I'm not. I'm just trying to bring awareness. What happens is those people get prayed for. They get prayed over for the healing, the physical healing of the medical condition. But remember the word stigma. Mental health people, if they go forth and ask for prayer. What I have witnessed with my own eye is someone pray this demon out of this person. And mental health is not a demon. What then happens to that person? They either don't return to church, or they sit down and they don't say another word. So the stigma is there. And we've got to find out or find a way of being able to break that. We've got to bust through that. What we were talking about is just where mental health is today as it where it was. And one of the things that I've seen is that it used to be that mental health was at the back of the line, right? All the other medical conditions were in the front, and it just so happens that we had some community mental health places and things like that. Well, the pandemic did something, and I don't know how many people realize this. What it did was it created an opportunity for mental health to say, you know what, you guys haven't given us a chance. Y'all been keeping us at the back of the line, but we're going to push ourselves to the front now. And now we're at the front because we've seen people during this pandemic really struggle with mental health. Some of them didn't even know that they had mental health issues. But being on lockdown really brought it out. And now that it's out, and now that people with mental health issues feel empowered to now step forth, it is now time for us as a community, whether it's the church, whether it's the school, wherever it is, the government, whatever it is, we've got to start paying attention to it. And we've got to take that word stigma out and really begin to do the work that's needed to help those people, help us all. I don't even want to say those people, help us all get to a place of health. Not just physical health, but mental health as well. So I like that you brought up the stigma. We don't need to be afraid to say the word suicide. We don't need to be afraid to say, we'll say depressed and we'll say anxiety, but people don't want to say, well, you know, I'm dealing with bipolar disorder, or I'm schizophrenic. You know, I've been diagnosed with schizophrenia. You know, I think that it's very powerful for this young lady to be able to say, you know, I was dealing with an eating disorder. And there's a lot of, and I know that you know this, there are a lot of kids out there that are dealing with eating disorders, but they're not telling anybody.
And that's why it's so important that you sign up today, because there's an organization that I've been going, even though I'm not a parent, but I feel like a parent in the community. And I attend every Tuesday. You learn so much on how to do, what to do about mental health for our kids. And it's Georgia Support Parent Network. I will send all the information to you guys, but make sure to go to our website to see Youth Mental Health. You have the resources, you have all the information. Be part of this. Our youth need us because we need to advocate for them. But they do an excellent job on advocating themselves, but they need our support. So remember, why we're coming out from this is that we need to get youth mental health first aid, adult youth mental health first aid, all of those things that are going to equip us and have the tools to be able to help our youth. And not only our youth, our families, because we are part of the equation. If we are not healthy in our mind, or well-being in our minds, we're not going to be able to help. So today you did a great step, and we're just going step by step, but we are going into the right direction. And I just want to thank everyone that is here today, because some of you travel a lot, some because of friendship, and someone because I call that. So all of you are essential for these conversations because you're the experts. But without the guidance and the leadership of our youth, we would not be here. So thank you so much. And to everyone that has been an intrinsic part of this, thank you. Thank you.
thank you all for coming, and thank you all to all of our panelists. I feel like we definitely got a lot done, got a lot said, and were able to voice a lot of thoughts around mental health. And I feel like by doing these things, and by even the small amount of people that are here today, by inviting one other person next time we have one of these, will really be amazing. So thank you all for coming, and have a good night.